My project is on carbon emissions in the beer industry and how climate change has affected it. So, a quick overview on the effects climate change has had on our environment before we get started. The science has proven that the increase in global temperatures since 1950 has been caused by human activity. Burning fossil fuels for energy, intense farming, and agriculture to produce meat and crops are all activities that release greenhouse gases, which trap heat in the atmosphere and as a result raise the global temperature. And the best science we have has told us that to avoid irreversible damage, we must globally achieve net zero carbon emissions no later than 2050. To start off, I'll be talking about how the beer industry has been negatively impacting our environment and how it's contributing to climate change. So, alcoholic beverages, including beer, account for nearly 1% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. This is due to the intensive use of the agricultural materials, water, energy, and packaging materials used to produce beer. 1 liter of beer requires 0.269 kilograms of malted barley, which is the main agricultural crop for beer production. 1 kilogram of barley releases 0.57 kilograms of CO2, as well as a 6-pack of beer emitting about 250 grams of CO2. So here's some more information on how the industry has contributed to climate change. Crops used to produce beer are annual, meaning they provide one harvest and need to be replaced year-round. And growing these crops on an industrial scale takes enormous amounts of water, fertilizer, and energy, which is why agriculture is a major source of carbon pollutants. And this style of farming has damaged earth soils and destroyed habitats, which contributes to the dangerous warming of our planet. Tillage, which is the practice of churning the ground to destroy weeds, breaks up organic matter and exposes them to sunlight, which releases carbon into the atmosphere. And even our solutions to these problems are damaging to the environment, such as fertilizer, which pollutes waterways and produces nitrous oxide, a potent greenhouse gas. Modern farming is also concerningly carbon intensive, factoring in the fuel for machinery and transport and the carbon that's lost when ecosystems are switched over to cropland. It is no wonder why agriculture accounts for almost a quarter of our annual planet warming emissions. So now I'll be talking about how climate change has impacted the beer industry. Climate change has affected the industry on every level and will even trickle its way down to the consumer. The quality and quantity of a very important raw material in the beer making process, hops, is greatly affected by climate change. 73% of the hops in the U.S. are grown in Washington state. The irrigation water used for hops comes from the annual melting of the Cascades, and there are increasing concerns over the availability of sufficient water for beer production. Warmer winters lead to more precipitation, and warmer springs melt the snow earlier, leaving less water during the heat of the summer and into the fall harvest. The consumers will also feel climate change's effects on beer, because constant changes in temperature and rainfall affect the biochemistry of hops, which alters its taste. So continuing on climate change's impact on the industry, another key ingredient impacted by climate change is barley, which gives beer its color. Barley requires 15 to 17 inches of water to complete its growth cycle, and hops can require 4 times that amount. Scientists have said that droughts and higher temperatures will affect barley to the point where we see beer shortages by the end of the century. As the climate warms, higher cash crops like soybeans and corn are migrating into areas traditionally used for barley. Aspects of climate change like flooding, droughts, and wildfires all negatively impact crops, which will increase production costs. And pairing that with shortages in beer supply, consumers can expect price raises. Climate change is affecting the industry so much to the point where we are already seeing its effects globally. Yield from hops in the Czech Republic, who are global suppliers of hops, will see a decrease of 7 to 9% between 2026 and 2050. Seeing the tremendous amounts of carbon that the beer industry has emitted, it is clear that it's time for a change. The beer industry is an industry that has been harming the environment for decades due to the extensive product cycle for producing beer. From the carbon-intensive farming to the fermentation process, the average brewery emits 250 grams of CO2 per 6-pack of beer. To lower emissions, an industry-wide change must occur, and some breweries have made steps to ignite such a change. There have been a few proposed solutions that have been made across multiple sectors, such as energy, water, and farming, and here are a few of my proposed solutions. We could switch to a grain called kernza, which is a domesticated form of wheatgrass. This grain thrives without tilling, uses less water, removes carbon from the atmosphere, and can be a substitute for wheat and barley. It also reduces the need for fertilizer and provides habitat for wildlife. Proponents say it can mimic the way a natural ecosystem functions and can transform farming from a cause of great environmental harm to a solution to the planet's biggest crisis. We could also power breweries and vehicles with renewables. Heineken has signed a deal with energy supplier Iberdrola to power all of its breweries in Spain using solar power, and other breweries could follow suit. A few of my other proposed solutions is to protect water supplies, and Anheuser-Busch has led by example in this category by partnering with the Nature Conservancy to preserve water supply in the West. We could also establish water funds. Water funds are organizations that design financial and governance mechanisms that unite companies around a common goal of water security through watershed management and other solutions. We could also have policies that require breweries to record their emissions and commit to being a carbon neutral producer of beer by a specific time. And this is not an unreasonable request, as Heineken has come out already and said that they aim to achieve this by 2030.